Safe in Manchester. How are you?
Hi there, Matt.
Hi.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure. You had sent a tweet about your new book.
Yes, The Allah Delusion.
Why don't you take a minute or so and tell us about it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I wrote this book when I started out as a teenager. I had a lot of problems with Islam, and I used to fall into a lot of arguments with my cousins, who often had come from Pakistan, and were trying to get me to follow the religion more fastidiously. And I got down and started studying the religion from top to bottom, and there were lots of things I had problems with. And he asked me to write them down so he could take them all to a religious scholar over in Pakistan, and he could come back to me with the answers. So I sat down, wrote all the questions, put it together in a blog, which had something like 45,000 views. And he never came back to me. It's been 8 years and never heard back from him. But the book's out now, thanks to him and by the grace of Allah.
Yeah, you spent all this time coming up with questions and never got any answers.
No, and it's very hard to find it because there's this. It's all hidden underneath a cloak, and almost like asking the questions is almost a sin in itself. It's almost like you are doubting the existence and the truth of the religion itself.
I tell you, one of the only Islamic apologists I've seen, I believe his name is Warwick. Is that right? You might know
Ibn Warwick, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very vehemently against the religion. I don't necessarily follow his approach because I think a more softer approach is probably more useful for the Ummah at large to take them on board with the new humanist ideas in this century.
We might not be talking about the same guy. You're saying this guy is opposed to the religion? Because there's an individual that I've seen on YouTube who's basically this extremely overly saccharine sweet Islamic apologist who talks about how he loves atheists because they've already got it half right, because the Quran says there is no God but Allah.
I like you're talking wrong. I call him Nike, N-I-N-A-I-K, which incidentally means to fuck in Arabic, his surname. Which is
hey, welcome to the Sex and God Show. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, you know, you're in Manchester in the UK, and there's a little bit more going on in your area with regard to Islam that we don't actually have to deal with. And while we're
yeah, but you deal with the overspill, don't you, over in the US?
We deal with what?
You deal with the overspill.
Yes.
Overspill.
You had 9/11, so it doesn't necessarily just lie on our borders. Often the problem gets exported over to the US, and you tend to deal with everything.
That's all right, because we're sending the creationists over to you, evidently, anyway. we've got a really good international trade in religious buffoonery.
There's too much over here, and it's time that we started working with them and trying to make changes, because it's polluting the youth of today, and we're going to get the problems, continue getting the problems further down the line.
Yeah.
Sure. You might be interested. There's a new American Humanist Association website that talks about teens without God and kids without God. It's a great resource for parents to go to, for teens, for kids. It's got lots of science. It's got all sorts of answers. And I'm writing a column for them called Ask an Atheist, and it's teens writing in to ask me questions. I've had questions from the UK. I've had questions from Turkey, all over the United States, of course.
Well, it would be great if they could join up with us, because I'm trying to start off a cultural Muslim and humanist association in the UK in the next year, because I think there's a lot of problems. I mean, I've had about 139 death threats, because leaving Islam or becoming a cultural Muslim carries through the penalty within Sharia law.
Yeah.
Well,
for murder, and so it's something that is, you know, we need to, the humanists and everybody needs to come on board to actually support our needs, because we are a minority and we, you know, have to be careful how we express ourselves.
check with the British Humanist Association, see if they'll help you.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things. Also, Richard Dawkins' fund and his foundation, I think that's an excellent area. But also with Muslims, I want to reach out to them as well. Rather than saying I'm an ex-Muslim, because I don't think that's necessarily conducive or positive, I want to say we're cultural Muslims. There's still a lot in me that is, I still find carried out on me today that is specific to my upbringing as a Muslim. And I think rather than having this X stance or saying that I am not you, and it's almost like an antagonistic approach, it's like saying, come on, we all share, we're all humans, we all belong to this world, let's live happily, rather than having this them and us, them versus us approach.
Do you find that actually, do you have better conversations when you go that way?
Yes, very, very much so, because they to be honest, the biggest opposition I'm getting with this idea of cultural humanism is from ex-Muslims themselves, who no longer want anything to do with Islam, and they don't like even having the name attached to them. It almost muddies what they stand for. But, there's so many things that still carry out, with me. I still celebrate Eid, I still say Salaam Alaikum when I meet my family, I still use wet wipes in the toilet, or a lorta, what they call it.
Well, that seems to be a good idea in general.
For biryani. So there's still ramifications into my life even now, as to my upbringing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you calling in, and hit me up. I mean, I know we did this real quickly over Twitter, and I've got a bunch of phone calls to get to, and Daryl's already on this week, but drop me an email about what's going on with the book and everything else. We'll talk some more. Yeah,
they mentioned that you might have me on as guest speaker sometime.
Sure.
Could I just do a quick shout-out? I've a bunch of people asking me to just mention a few things.
Well, okay, as long as you're not selling anything, sure.
Oh, well, I just want to mention the CEMB Ex-Muslim Forum. That's a group of where we all get together. My Debating Islam Facebook group, Gin and Tonic Show, Majid Nawaz's The Radical book, and finally my book, The Allah Delusion.